this is a super important topic for us. Affordable housing, attainable housing is very important for all of us. So thank you to our experts for coming here and sharing with us today. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my friend and my personal realtor, Troy Thiel.
All right. Hey, Sara, can you share the screen with me?
I sure can. Let me make you.
So
you should now be host.
Okay, so you are host now. So I hit share screen and I want to go to one of these. Which one do I want to go to? Hit share. There we go. So thanks everyone for joining us. And thanks Sara for all the great work you do with the Community for Affordable Housing. It's great to work with you and so many others. Today's episode or issue, we did a prefab modular housing back at the end of August, and we have that on tape. Today, of course, is how COVID has changed the role of home and what home means to all of us. And we are talking about accessory dwelling units and detached dwelling units as one of the strategies, as the solution that we're offering. So I am not able to forward that screen for some reason. There we go. It's not allowing me to forward that screen. Huh.
You might have to change your view.
Okay, stop. I'm going to share screen and pick a different one. I need to go to my PowerPoint. Sorry about this. Okay, there we go. So let me do the view full. Sorry about the delay. Okay, so how has COVID changed our definition of home? We all want COVID to end as quickly as possible, clearly, but it's changed in the interim how we're using our home. And so there's a lot of different conversations about that. The Fast Company story there on the screen is the end of open plan living, because there's going to be some changes on how homes are designed. The photo at the upper right it looks like Karen and I, two people now working from home. We do not have a little one sharpening a pencil and homeschooling, but that's happening. The woman, we have a bike on order that we're waiting for we need a home gym just like her. And then there's other issues that the definition of home has changed. We have several clients who have boomeranging family members who've come back and now need that extra guest space. We have clients that are living in an 800 square foot unit that they had downsized to, and their college kid came back. And so they have now 3 home office needs and more housing needs. A he, she shed or grotto. Some folks need extra space for income, like accessory dwelling units and detached dwelling units. Some folks need extra space and will use ADUs and DADUs as their potential next home, where they'll build a DADU that fits their housing needs and then either sell off or rent off the front house. We have clients doing that in Kirkland right now. And then we all kind of need some alone space and some outside space. So COVID has definitely changed some things. The next screen, Strong Towns does really great work. And here is about accessory commercial units. The D, maybe it's not all about the D in the ADU DADU, the second D in that one, because maybe it's just we need more space. And the C in this case is commercial, but it could be the same for home office or flexible space for home office guest or home gym and all those uses. So a lot of folks need more room and more function. Accessory dwelling units and DADUs can be a very important part of that. One of the challenges getting them passed through municipalities or at the state level is oftentimes the NIMBYs, the not in my backyard or not in my neighbor's backyard, to be more accurate. There's been that fight. Now the challenge here is NIMBYs need extra space too now. And so maybe this is the year to get Olympia through, and we'll talk later about other things that other municipalities have done to improve these. So without further ado, I will pass the ball over to Brenda. And Brenda, you just tell me when you
Sure.
hold a thumb up when I hit the next slide.
Okay, so first of all, thank you everybody for coming. And we realize that this is one of the most important issues out there. So we're excited to start this conversation. I've been teaching many, many real estate classes over the last 15 to 20 years. And I have to tell you, I've never seen as much excitement as I have for accessory dwelling unit classes. The realtors were offering these classes up until COVID, and every single class that was offered monthly had a sellout of 75 people. So this is a hot issue. I think real estate agents do see the need, and I think Troy is right that COVID has spurred it on even more. To get everybody on the same page, I've been asked to give kind of the elementary accessory dwelling unit 101. And please understand, I'm gonna go through it in like 5 minutes. So hopefully for those of you that know all of this, it's not gonna be too boring. So with that, let's move on, Troy. So let's all be clear what a definition of an accessory dwelling unit. It basically is small, it's self-contained, and it has all the functions of living in a single family house in one unit. In other words, it's got kitchen, living space, sleeping, and some kind of bathroom. Next. An ADU, by any other name, is still an ADU. We hear it called backyard cottage, mother-in-law suite, carriage house, granny flat, casita, and in Seattle, we're coining the term DADU, which it just means that it's detached and in the backyard instead of in the house. Next. ADUs may be created connected with the existing home, or separate, attached, or even a separate structure, which would be the DADU that we hear about. And each one of those has different design issues, but they all have the basic life functions in common. Next. I love this chart. Marco, thank you to the MBA. This is a really good diagram of what ADUs can look like.
You know, credit to Kaya Caldwell, who's on the call, and also Liz Van Bemmel on our team. They put a lot of time into where the blue goes and what it means and everything else. So thank you.
Well, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's the best graphic I have seen that represents all of the different modes of ADUs.
It was a lot of time of, well, let's move that house there so you can see this one better. It was great. They did a wonderful job.
They did, absolutely. Next. So detached backyards, and if you notice, design-wise, they vary significantly. They can look very New England cottagey, or they can be very edgy, container-like, and everything in between. And basically, it's just in the backyard. Next. And here's a sample of a attached ADU that has a separate entrance. And if you didn't know it was an ADU, you would just think it was a larger house in Kirkland. Good design work, Galen. Next. Who benefits from ADUs? And we look at this, and really, I think the answer is everyone. We have a housing crisis, and ADUs can help solve a part of it. But at the time we were doing this, we came up with younger buyers, aging in place, seniors that want to create a revenue stream or maybe give a house to a caregiver, multi-generational. A lot of us have kids that have moved back home during COVID, and basically anybody that wants flexibility. Next. Benefits. And again, I'm going through this really fast because I know most of you already know all this, but I just want to get everybody kind of to the same page. Affordability, opportunity, flexibility, stability. Next page. Sustainability and responsibility. And this came from Sightline. Next. There are barriers to ADU creation, and I think we're going to spend some time today going into more detail on all of these. First, time to permit and build. To the construction cost. It's expensive to build, you know, you're putting the most expensive parts of the house into a much smaller space, and you're getting rid of the cheap parts of construction. A lot of regulations, and right now the regulations are different in every single jurisdiction. So if you're a builder and you work in more than one jurisdiction, you've got a lot of regs to wade through. And when I say financing, I also mean appraisal. To get financing, many times you've got to go through the appraisal cycle. The appraisal is not quite up to par yet. So again, an issue we'll probably talk about more. Next. Top reasons, there's a lot of reasons here, right? Permitting, regulatory, cost, finance, limited to size and unit count and fee structure, ownership requirements, parking, not in my backyard, etc. So why do we do it? That's a lot of constraints. And I think the people that do it because they're passionate and they see the benefit of it. Next.
Yeah, and that was this was my slide. There we go. And so I think, Brenda, we're through your slides.
Just about. I think I just had a couple other quick things. I did at this time want to really give a shout out to Legacy Homes. And why I'm giving the shout out to Legacy Homes is that they proved that a builder can do it right and make a good profit by doing the right thing. They, for anybody that's interested, in a particular neighborhood of Bothell, most homes in that neighborhood were selling for about $300 a square foot, new construction. This Legacy Homes came in, did a small development, and the biggest difference was they had flexible space over their garage in every house. And their units sold for a little bit over $400 a square foot. And that's about a 20 to 25%, depending on the exact house. That's huge. And they just hit a home run on it. So I think we're going to see more and more builders go that route. Next.
Okay.
I think it's Troy, back to you.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Oh, and we're going to have enough time to converse. I will also put the PDF version of this present in the chat when I get a break, when someone else is speaking. And then also too, I've got some links to accessory dwelling unit and DADU resources and information on what some of this will present. But as Brenda did so well, there are, the top 10 reasons why we're missing, why we're not seeing as many ADUs and DADUs as we thought. Now, other municipalities have worked on, and there's been work at the Olympia. So that's my next part, is kind of to talk about that. State Representative Cindy Ryu is on the call, and she's a leader in housing issues in the legislature and head of the committee that deals with housing issues. The last 2 years, we've had two bills, and 2 years ago in 19 session, it was 1797, and I believe it was 2570 in the 2020 session. The Sightline has been mentioned before. Here's a picture. Sightline does fantastic studies of issues of housing and urbanism. If you're into this and you're not on Sightline's list, get on their list. They do a lot of great writing too about sustainability in the Cascadia region. Unfortunately, the ADU bill has sort of died in the House each of the last 2 years. But as we were talking with Mark earlier, there is some energy. There's a lot of different solutions around housing to make some impact because COVID, not only is it challenging our need for space, but it's challenging affordability in housing for folks who can't afford it. And there's so many people that are being damaged economically by COVID. So we need to have some great options. One of the cities that's been a leader in our state, and I say that there are other states. Oregon's done really amazing stuff. California has done fantastic stuff. But Seattle has stepped up, and we were excited. Brenda shared this. That was my birthday, September 15th, but the city had launched a pre-approved backyard cottage design program, which is really fantastic. There are 10 pre-approved designs. And I'll have the links to this. Here is the ADU Universe city site is really a fantastic resource for city ADUs. And there's the pre-approved ADU link, which takes you to this page. There's a browsing of a gallery, selecting a design, preparing a site plan, getting your permit. The city has really stepped up and improved this process. Here's a picture of 9 of the 10. I couldn't get the 10th one on, it was a little below. But when you go to the site, you can see the gallery of the 10 pre-approved projects. And some of them, I mean, Karen and I, when we saw this, there's like 7 or 8 of these we're ready to move in today. This in combination with the city's RSL, residential short lot zoning adjustments, has made having more than one property on a traditional city lot a reality. And it's that's really good stuff.
And Troy, I want to jump in really quickly and just say the city of Seattle had over 300 entries into this. So there was quite a bit of talent in there.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you know, to kind of piggyback on that to understand market forces. There have been homes that have been built about the size of these that have sold on the market at market values for over $800 a square foot in places like Columbia City and Wedgwood and a couple other spots. Karen and I were considering purchasing one recently. So there's a market demand, like Brenda says. I've helped with the panels on the multiple listing service or Northwest MLS training courses that Brenda's taught. And wow, there's a lot of demand. And we have clients, like I mentioned, that are designing an ADU, actually a DADU, to move into and then condoize the home and sell off the main house. This is a picture of the Kirkland code and updated projects. I will again have the link in the chat by the end of the meeting. Kirkland, Brenda and I and about 20 so other residents of Kirkland sat on a Kirkland Strategic Housing Committee where we finished 3+ years ago with our recommendations, and a lot of these were finally adopted. This is the challenge, is one of the slowness of the process and getting to implementation. But Kirkland's done some really great things, and similar to the city, they're working on 4 pre-approved plans. So you can literally walk into the city of Kirkland, and if you pick plan A, B, C, or D, and get your permits right away. They're really good. So this is a picture from the city of Tacoma. Tacoma did an amazing update to their accessory dwelling unit and detached dwelling unit plan back in May 1st of last year. And in fact, Sara and her husband, Chris, picked the home they purchased based upon the fact that they were going to develop an ADU in their home and then have an eventual DADU in the backyard. So it's a great way as an ownership option, because we are the missing middle in Seattle was in the region zoned out a lot of multifamily options that we see in other major cities that are 2 flats, 3 flats, 4 flats. You know, when people say ADU or DADU, maybe just think about it from an investment standpoint or from a home use or a property use standpoint as a 2 flat or a 3 flat or a 4 flat. They're just not all the same size. Karen and I were able to buy a duplex in Evanston, Illinois, when we lived there in the 90s. And that house was just the same size as our neighborhood, single family homes, but the price was about 30% less or 40% less in some cases. Having said that, another city that is moving forward, Olympia, is doing really great ADU improvements, and I'll have the links to that. But they're also addressing that missing middle I was just talking about in terms of some of these missing housing choices that we don't have that have been zoned out of the Seattle region, and they need to come back in, and maybe even across the state. That's an ADU in the middle, that's townhomes on the right, and that's a duplex on the left. This page from that same code amendments shows that they're allowing duplexes on corner lots. We recommended that for Kirkland. They're upsizing ADUs. They're making it not requiring additional parking. They're not requiring the owner to live on site. So if you're an investor, you know, people are purchasing in places where in Tacoma, they're purchasing a house where they know they can add 2 units. And Ken might speak to that as some of his clients. And there's the ability to sell off and condoize, essentially, like short platting, which is happening all the time all over the Seattle region, the ADU or the DADU from the main home and creating new ownership. That's part of what the city of Seattle is doing with the RSL short sites. It's giving a lot more flexibility of land use. This also talks about duplexes, triplexes, or courtyard apartments. And that's another strategy that we're missing, kind of that missing middle price point and quality that we really need to get more people into home ownership and or have downsizers. Give them the option so they can then list their home for a next user. With that, I'm done with my side. This is Ken is next. This is I'll leave this here. Ken, did you need to share a screen? Do you have any things you'd like to show?
I do not. Thank you. These are much nicer graphics than I would have come up with. Shall I begin?
Yeah, I'll just leave this up. Ken, thank you so much. This is the Community for Affordable Housing. This was our 12 days of housing solutions that we put out at the last holiday. And you can see number 5 on the left is accessory dwelling units, DADUs, and prefab modular, which we discussed at our last event. So go ahead, Ken.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me as part of this panel. Our company builds DADUs. We use a set of stock plans and customize them to some extent to meet clients' needs. We work in the South Sound and primarily in the city of Tacoma, which continues to take steps to make it easier to build ADUs and detached units. Despite all that, it's still pretty challenging. In a way, when we talk about ADUs, we are tiptoeing around the topic of density. So we talk about DADUs and ADUs as gentle densification, as an attempt to buy down some of the resistance that single-family neighborhoods might have. If it's a choice between a backyard cottage and a 10-plex on the corner, backyard cottages seem more appealing to a lot of people. This is ultimately a political question. It's not a matter of technology. We know absolutely what kind of regulations are friendly. We know how to design and engineer these buildings. We know how to sell them. We're learning how to finance them. The challenge is whether the resistance to density can be overcome. And in Tacoma, the coalition that has been working to that end has included, beyond realtors and beyond builders and beyond lenders, the environmental community and the social justice community. It's in a way an unlikely coalition, but it very much makes sense. If we can densify urban neighborhoods, we can protect farmlands and wilderness from sprawl. And if we can increase the diversity of housing options across a city, we can increase access to education and shopping and relationships for renters as well as for owners. In Tacoma, half the renters are people of color. And so whenever I hear an objection to someone putting a rental unit in his or her backyard, I have to ask myself, how much of that resistance is a concern that a family of color might move in to what is, for a long time, been an all-white neighborhood? There is, in fact, a limit to how long we want to accommodate resistance to density. And at what point we, as a community and as elected and appointed officials in cities and at the state level, want to say density is in fact our destiny in urban and suburban environments. And we're going to do this. And if you want to live in the country, by all means, move to the country. But we have plans statewide that call for the well-being of everyone to be centered on dense cities. ADUs are a tool, not the only tool, but one tool to increase density. And in that context, I think the merits are undeniable, perhaps controversial, but for us as a company, and for I think many of us on this call, it's quite clear this is the way we need to proceed. I'll dismount the soapbox now and turn over to the next speaker. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. And remember, everyone, we will have time for questions and answers. Marco, you're up next. Did you have any screens you wanted to share?
You know, I think I'm okay. I think I can just talk and use hand signals.
Okay.
I'm just kind of looking over my notes. I think a lot of stuff has been covered. You know, obviously the challenges everybody pointed out is just that we have all the parts of a house crammed into a little area on usually a little space. I think lending, you know, is coming around, but it's still a challenge. We ultimately are dealing with a construction loan, which even to builders is a very tricky loan. And we're putting it on a homeowner that's probably never built something before. And their home loan is the biggest loan they've ever done, which is a much simpler transaction. It is hard to express how much regulation can contain ADUs, even in communities that may want them. A parking requirement will take a lot of parcels off of possibility. Impact fees, we have a builder who's doing an ADU in King County that city wants $70,000 in impact fees. Lot coverage. Seattle has done a lot of wonderful things with their ADU ordinance. They did not increase their 35% lot coverage threshold. So when you're on a 5,000 square foot lot, it's getting pretty tight in there. So all of those are just really important to talk about, but you're right to champion everything that Seattle has done. What I'll talk about really quick is just a dovetail on what was just said. You know, single family zoning does have a really difficult history, and it was both racial and economic lines, and single family neighborhoods and the price of the homes there keep people out, and it keeps them out of some really great recent research that was based in Seattle on high opportunity neighborhoods where you have a great school, close access to jobs, parks, libraries, walkable shopping districts, and people just can't buy in. I would also say that with the protection of the rural areas, you know, Washington State's Growth Management Act isn't perfect, but it is holding the line. And what has happened is the line is held in many areas so that the rural area is staying rural, but inside the line, these cities are not allowing for more housing. You may see, you know, places that have, you know, adjoining cities with global headquarters like Costco, and the city is still zoned in many parts 1 house per acre. So these ADUs and DADUs are one of the ways that we can start to put density back in these neighborhoods that were originally built out very, very sprawled out. The master builders a year or so ago did a series of focus groups, and far and away backyard cottages were the most popular form of missing middle housing. We are supportive of all forms of it, but it was not even close with how much communities were comfortable with somebody building a cottage next door. One of the final points I just want to make is that Seattle's code is really interesting in that I think it's been exceeded. You know, Snohomish County is moving ahead. They haven't passed it yet, I think, but they have Kaya's on the call from my team. Kaya, Snohomish County hasn't passed their ADU bill yet, have they?
No, they have not. They're looking at potentially November passing that.
Could you just walk us through really quick what they're discussing though?
So they are discussing allowing in both rural and urban areas 2 ADUs or DADUs, so 1 ADU, 1 DADU. And I believe, so they haven't passed it, but they're looking at a square footage of about 1250. So this would be a really good code if the Snohomish County Council chooses to pass this in November. So it's passed out of Planning Commission, but it goes to council now.
Great, thank you. And the in Seattle, what the code is that you can have a house, an attached ADU. So it can be a house with a, just physically a smaller ADU up to 1,200 square feet attached to your home, and then a separation, and then a detached ADU. So you're seeing builders now, they get an open lot in the city and they will build 3 homes. And those back ADUs are brand new, 2-bedroom, even 3-bedroom, a little snug, but I've been in a 3-bedroom townhome that was just over 1,000 square feet with a wife and a child. And it was great because we were right next to work. And these are selling, for much lower prices than the main home on the street or the houses in the neighborhoods. And these are being built again in these high opportunity neighborhoods. So it's very exciting what we're seeing. These for almost a century, these neighborhoods have been shut off to anybody that couldn't afford a single family home, and we're seeing it reopening again, which is really great. The final thing is that we're using air rights condominium laws, and I think this audience is pretty familiar with those. So people are buying the DADU on the alley, which the parking spots are there, and then they're buying the attached ADU to the home, and then someone else is buying the home. So you're really seeing a new model for housing in Seattle. So it was great. The last thing is, I'm going to bring Kaya back in for a second. One bill did pass last year on ADU, and Kaya, would you just give a quick overview? It was not what we'd hoped, but it was a nudge in the right direction.
Sure. So Senate Bill, so this was last session, Senate Bill 6617, which was sponsored by Senator Leas and Senator Doss, did pass. And it basically, like Marco kind of alluded to, it was really stripped down from what we were hoping for, but it prohibits cities as of this coming July 1st, 2021, from imposing off-street parking requirements for ADUs if they're within 1/4 mile of frequent transit. So basically, if some sort of public transit is running every 15 minutes or so during peak hours, the city cannot make a parking requirement. Now, there is a caveat with that. Cities can prove extenuating circumstances, such as limited street space, if they want to maintain those parking mandates. But we were happy to have something pass.
Yeah.
And we're hopeful to do more in the future.
And one last thing is, I think Kaya is going to put in the comments, she and Liz Van Bemmel worked on a video. We have a number of videos on Missy Middle, but a really great one we have is on ADUs to show folks what they look like, and a young family that lives in one in Wallingford that wanted to stay in the city but couldn't have afforded without being able to build an ADU. And it's a great video, so we'll put it in the link, and people are welcome and encouraged to share it far and wide. And that's it, Troy.
Thanks, Marco. Next up, we have Kathy on the call today to help us discuss financing accessory dwelling units. Kathy, did you need to share the screen by chance?
You can have anything up there that you want. I don't have any particular screen to share.
All right.
I did want to thank you for inviting me to be a part of this, because I am passionate about helping people, and also passionate about being able to outline the ways that Umpqua Bank can help people build ADUs and DADUs. So the different types of financing, there are certainly more available for primary residences over second homes or investment properties. So for a primary residence, if there is sufficient value as is, a home equity line of credit could be something that is available to folks to pull money out to build an ADU or DADU. The question with that is, do they have any additional funds that they can fall back on if there are cost overruns or unforeseen expenses? A cash out refinance will work in that similar way. And again, that's based on the as is value. And again, the question would be, are there fallback funds for cost overruns? A reverse mortgage would work for someone who's 62 or older. And the younger they are, of course, the more equity they would need to have in their home in order to do a reverse mortgage. But it's my understanding that they could either take a lump sum amount to do that, or use something like a line of credit to be able to build. And then, of course, we have the all-in-one construction loan. And the benefit of doing that is that it uses the as completed value to determine the loan to value ratio. One of the challenges, I think, these days with interest rates that have been so low is that many folks have refinanced to a nice low rate that they'd like to keep forever and ever. And that loan would have to be rolled into the construction loan. And so that's a bit of a drawback. I just had a client last week ask if there wasn't some way that they could just have separate financing for the ADU that they wanted to build, and that isn't possible. So that's a little bit of a drawback, but those loans are available for conforming and jumbo for primary residences, and I think it's a really great product. Fannie Mae has a construct-to-perm loan, and that too is based on the as completed value. That's available for conforming and high balance loan amounts. And it can actually include you. So second homes, if a client owns a second home as a vacation home, like in the San Juans or something, and wants to build an ADU, those are a little more complicated, or actually they just have fewer options. They're not more complicated. The customer could use a home equity line of credit for that, based again on the as-is value, or they could do a cash out refinance. If you own an investment property and you want to build an ADU or a DADU, there is a cash out refinance option for those clients. And I also spoke with a business associate at Builders Capital, and they would be delighted to talk to any clients who own investment properties that want to build an ADU or a DADU. I believe they would offer short-term financing, and so once construction is done, that loan would have to be refinanced to a traditional loan, but that's a resource for investment property owners. I think the two biggest things that I see as challenges, and Brenda mentioned one of them, would be, first of all, the appraisal. And Troy, you and Brenda can correct me if I'm wrong, but I did speak with an appraiser who said that one of their challenges when trying to comp a transaction with an ADU or a DADU is that agents are not required to show the ADU or DADU on a listing agreement. So it makes it tricky for the appraiser to search for comps. And that would be one thing I think that could be highlighted as a potential change that would help in the long run. Maybe another is to just help clients realize that they may not get a dollar for dollar value for what they're building. I think a lot of customers feel that that should be the case, and it isn't always. And then I'm not sure what the solution to this is, but at this particular point in time, Fannie Mae does not allow the use of rental income on a primary residence unless it's a specialty, the home ready product that for low to moderate income borrowers who have border income. But otherwise, that rental income cannot be counted toward potential financing. So I think I see that as a challenge that would need to be addressed as well. So appraisal and the income would be the two challenges, but we sure do have a lot of different options for primary home owners who want to be able to build.
Great. Kathy, did you have anything else?
That's it.
Oh, thank you. That's fantastic. And remember, folks, we'll have time for questions and answers. Representative Ryu, I've got you next up on the schedule. Did you have any things you wanted me to share a screen with, or?
Yeah, if I could share my screen, that would be wonderful. I think you need to you disabled it. So if you could do participant screen sharing, that'd be great. Hi everyone, Cindy Ryu, State Representative from the 32nd Legislative District, and I represent a little bit of Seattle, all of Shoreline, and then the southwest corner of Snohomish County, including the town of Woodway, a little bit of Edmonds, a little bit of Montlake Terrace, and most of Linwood. Thank you so very much for this time. And it is still disabled, but I can talk.
Yeah, I don't know how to do this, so I'm trying to figure it out while you're talking.
That's fine. Yeah, I wanted to go, because of your time limits, just 2 items. One is ADUs elsewhere, what's happening, and one is with the LA city as well as California. They have streamlined the ADU construction and approval process. They require that the permits for ADUs and junior ADUs, DADUs, I guess, another acronym, to be approved or denied within 60 days rather than 120 days allotted by previous laws. So basically half the time. And then they have juniors are 500 square feet or less, and then ADUs are 800 square feet or less. And it prohibits application of development standards that limit the size if it prohibits the construction of at least 800 square feet. If they meet other criteria, they limit local discretion in establishing minimum and maximum unit size requirements. And they also remove parking requirements, replacement requirements when an ADU results in the demolition or conversion of existing parking, which is fantastic because, as you know, LA is pretty much sprawl city, and for them to be able to put in ADUs where their garages are probably is a great idea. And then second is the state initiatives that are in play. As you know, this upcoming session will be held, at least in the House, virtually, which means it's going to take us a lot of time to process any and all bills. And so we're being discouraged from dropping too many bills, because we typically drop 2,000 bills or more, and we pass, both chambers pass about 400 bills. So we're estimating at the most we'll be passing maybe 200 bills maximum, probably closer to much less than that. Definitely have to pass at least 3 bills because they are the budget bills, like the transportation budget, the capital budget, and the operations budget. And so there's been a huge stakeholder group being led by UW's Ruckelshaus Center, and that includes the master builders and realtors, some of whom are on this call. And what they decided recently is to draft one omnibus bill from that multi-month, quite a few 3- and 4-hour meetings on Zoom process. And so some of the highlights are that the cities and counties do not want it to be mandatory, so we have to make it opt-in, but we'll make it so that there's enough incentives or good features in it that hopefully there'll be popular demand to expand it, hopefully, and adopt it. And it is in the context of incentivizing or mitigating what we most likely will have to do, which is increasing climate change response, because it's a real thing. You know, we are sucked in with smoke. Even if we're not burning, we're being sucked in with California fires or Eastern Washington fires or whatever, right? And so some of the features that will be featured in it is how do we address the missing middle housing, not just for rental, but also for ownership. Clarifying that city and county councils are legislative bodies who would no longer have roles in approving or hearing certain appeals, not all appeals, but in certain appeals on development permits, because that was identified as one of the regulatory, I guess, hurdles that we were trying to get over or trying to somehow mitigate. And then lastly, creating the authority for cities to waive pre-GMA plat restrictions that are in conflict with locally adopted development regulations. And for instance, my city, the city of Shoreline, is very interested because they're trying to accommodate transit supportive densities in the light rail station areas. So that's my report. And if you, I will post my email address on the chat. So if you want to get in touch with me, I'd be very happy to have conversations with you further.
Thank you, Cindy. I actually made you host about halfway through, so if you could switch me back to host. Sorry, thank you. And I'll let Troy finish.
Well, thank you so much, Cindy. That was fantastic information. We're at the question and answer time now. Did anybody have a question for any of the speakers? Just go ahead and unmute yourself and speak up.
So one of the things that I really want to point out to everybody is we can't operate in silos. We need to make this a cross-disciplinary problem solving and make it as easy as possible to educate as many people as possible. So Tyler, I see your question on what builders would you recommend for the Seattle area. I think one of the first things I would do is look at master builders and who they've got that work in the Seattle area. There are, if you're a member of the master builders, you've already jumped through a few hoops, and you can actually go on to there and see what builders are there. You can also check Built Green. Many of the same builders that are building DADUs are also members of Built Green because there's an overlap in philosophy. There are, City of Seattle probably has builders that on their website for projects.
And Ken Miller, who's part of our panel today, actually is the owner of DADU Homes. So I'm sure that you could reach out to him for information and help. He's been doing it here in Tacoma. Seattle's not too far away, so he might be a really good resource. And he just put his email in the chat. So if you'd like to reach out to Ken, I'm sure that he'd be more than happy to help.
And the other point I should make is that there may be a difference between somebody that's doing DADUs and somebody else that's doing ADUs. So DADUs tend to probably be more new construction builders. ADUs probably are more remodelers. And so depending on what you're looking for depends upon what direction you would go.
Someone else in the chat mentioned, and let me find her name because she had a really great suggestion. But as Ken was kind of speaking about the implications of redlining and how all of these restrictions have come into play, to perhaps have a meeting, a next follow-up meeting about that, how all these regulations came into play to begin with, how we can get them changed moving forward perhaps. So that might be a nice topic to go to in a further meeting as well. So thank you for bringing that up. But I don't see any other questions in the chat. If anybody else has anything else, let's see. Do you find that homeowners are looking for a full-time, full turnkey solution? We at Hatchback provide full project management of DADUs from financing to design. We are own preferred builder and designer. Do homeowners want more choice?
Mm-hmm. Cindy, when we were setting up this call, you shared an email with, how multi-generational living, right? And how this is a great answer. I didn't mention that in my, I did mention kind of boomeranging family members. I am so used to, in my Chicago days and in my Midwestern days, seeing two flats where grandma and grandpa lived on one floor and the family lived on the other floor. I see this, the liberalization of DADUs and ADUs as a great way to answer that kind of need.
To add to that point, if we look around the world, in lots of other countries, multi-generational households are common. And as those folks come to the US, it makes sense for the market to respond to those appetites.
For sure. So this is another really interesting question. Will DADUs be the modular homes of 20 years from now, dilapidated sometimes, neglected by landowners who maximize income by neglecting renovations?
Boy, that's like a triple-edged question.
I think that's where you comes into play of bringing in a reputable builder or remodeler contractor to do the job right. You know, and then we do have a lot of regulation. I mean, City of Seattle, City of Kirkland, Tacoma, everywhere, you know, they do have, everything has to be inspected. There are standards that they have to conform to. So I would think, this is just me, I asked the question, I wouldn't think that that would be as big of an issue these days with as many regulations and standards that we have to uphold to.
So Jenny asked me what my thoughts are on homeowners and choice. And I think it depends. But I think there's a large fraction of the population out there that is concerned with time and budget, and they want to get something up and running fast. So your type of program where you take it from A to Z is going to be really appreciated, probably especially by the technology millennials who don't have time or interest in taking the process from A to Z. They just want it, and they want it yesterday. One of the frustrating things, my husband and I spent a lot of time down in Oregon. They are the leaders in ADUs and DADUs, and we went on their tour and taught. And what was so frustrating to us is that the average homeowner on this tour took over 2 years from the time they decided they wanted it until it was actually in place. And the costs were really high because they customized everything. And I think if we want this to take off, we've got to give options of doing it faster. There's still going to be people that are building custom homes that want their custom DADU, but I think there's many others that want something fast and want it reliable, good quality, and generate income.
There's
And if I
another
may,
good, oh yeah,
if
please.
I may, in defense of manufactured home communities, we found out that they were being prohibited from upgrading their units. So we recently, over the last couple of years, changed the law so that they may be updated without the cities prohibiting them from upgrading. And then also the technology on manufactured and prefab homes have gone up so significantly, and yet they still cost less than stick built. And so I'm actually quite encouraged by the prefabbed and manufactured homes.
For lenders, so Kathy, a question for you. Have any of you successfully financed a house renovation plus DADU construction within an FHA 203K loan?
I have not, and I actually don't know of anyone else who has either, but that's certainly something I could research and get back to you on.
Kathy, there are Freddie Mac products that will support renovation of an existing house plus construction of a DADU, I think.
Yes, I think that the Fannie Freddie guidelines are fairly similar in that. I think they both have programs too for the home remodel. And so we always refer to Fannie Mae and their guidelines because that's the primary one that UMQA follows. But I think you're right, Ken, that Freddie Mac will as well.
Well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming through. So I will take the time, since we're a few minutes out late. I want to say thank you all. Thank you to our expert panel. You guys were great, really good information. I appreciate it. And everybody else, thank you for hanging in there and grabbing getting on the call today. We are recording this. We're going to post it onto Troy's YouTube channel as well as send out to everyone in a follow-up email. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions or need anything at all or need to get in touch with anybody, please feel free to put my email in the chat at sarah.monzo@caliberhomeloans.com. I'm more than happy to coordinate that for any of you. So thank you very much. Have a really great Thursday, and we will see you next time with Community for Affordable Housing.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great day. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you, Troy.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good one, everybody. I can't wait to go to the dentist. Poor Karen, her mouth, she's